Conte is getting very vocal. You can see it. He's very clearly stating, I hope they listen to me. I hope they do this. I hope they improve the squad. I know it's difficult in January, but, and all of this. And I think if they don't, he is not going to hold back, privately or publicly. I've said this before. I know behind the scenes he's been very clear with Daniel Levy as well and Paratici, what he thinks about where the squad are at. A lot of home truths told, a lot of stuff that those people have probably, especially Daniel Levy, not been used to hearing from managers. Can you imagine what he'd be like if you leave him with a squad that is not really improved? Because there is actually the potential also, if they were to let these players go but don't bring in players that certainly of the required quality, could end up weakening the squad in January, which would be a hell of a feat, bearing in mind how lowly Conte seems to think of it. There's so much on it. I mean, obviously, Adama Traore looks like he'll be a Tottenham player by the end of the window. I don't think the two clubs are particularly far away. I think there's still things I'm hearing that Spurs are trying to make it a loan deal with a view to buy, with essentially a chunk paid for the loan and then the rest paid for the deal. Traore, make no mistake, is very much being driven by Paratici, that signing. He's a player that he loves. I've said this before. He wanted to sign him for Juventus for a big fee. I think he made a bid for him a couple of years back. He really likes him. This is someone who I wouldn't say Conte is driving, but what I would say is Conte is open to the transfer. Certainly he's not going to say no to him. Again, like Tongi, you know my thoughts on Adama Traore. Pace, power, skill, nothing at the end of it. However, if Conte believes that he can convert him into a right wing back, then I trust the man to do it. And I've seen him improve players. So I will totally jump on board the ship that is sailing towards Antonio Conte bringing an end product to Traore. At the very least, he should cause utter chaos that other players can benefit from. That's something in itself. He's certainly not the worst signing in the world. I certainly wouldn't say that. As I've said, people around Wolves have told me, and people reporting Wolves have said, good luck if you're going to get him to try to defend, because it's not something he's very good at. So that will be something that have to be drilled into him as well. Paratici loves Weston McKennie. I want to make sure I said his name right. This is more, I think right wing back is pretty much sewn up with it being Traore. Central midfield, that's where they're going to have to, that's where Conte wants another body. Weston McKennie, he's, if you're not kind of aware of him, 23-year-old USA international. Paratici loves him. He took him from Schalke to Juventus. Was it 2020? It wasn't that long ago at all. He's quite versatile. He can play his box-to-box role. He could play defensive midfield. He can play on the right of the midfield if required. I would say, though, despite that love for him from Paratici, and I believe Paratici's spoken with his representatives this month, I think that would be a struggle to get him away from Juventus this month. He's playing regularly. Allegri's playing him. He's starting almost every match. He's contributing. I think how many he's got. Scored against Udinese the other day. I think that was his fourth of the season from central midfield. I'd be surprised if that's not one they look at in the summer, Tottenham. I'd imagine when he talks to his representatives, they would have spoken about a potential January move. But yeah, I know people don't like to hear these difficult things, but I think it's more he's a player I'd keep an eye on because of Paratici's admiration for him. It's probably the way to say it. Another one that, obviously Spurs I'm sure would like to do a deal for him, get him in now, but every indication seems to be that the player, while Milan would probably let him go because then they get some money and don't lose him for free, I think the player is probably more looking towards the summer. He'd like to be a title winner with the AC Milan if he can. I think they're second in the league. And And obviously he gets a lot more money if he goes in the summer because there's no transfer fee. You can ask for a big old signing on fee and wages. But yeah, and also he's out in Africa. He's in Cameroon playing for the Ivory Coast in the Africa Cup of Nations. So that just adds another level of difficulty to getting any deal done in the next 6 days or so. So yeah, that's another one down. I sound like I'm just taking them up to knock them down. Another one I think has been offered to Tottenham more so than Spurs have made inquiries about is Fiorentina's Sofiane Amrabat. Funnily enough, he's represented by the same agency, ICM Stella Sports, who also represent Bale, Rodon, Davies. So you can see the link there. You can see why Spurs would have been offered him. I don't think he's had the best of seasons. He was signed by Fiorentina from Hellas Verona a couple of years ago. He was quite regular last season. This season, not getting a lot of game time at all. So I wonder whether he'd end up being a potential... I think he's Dutch-born. He's a Morocco international, but I think he was born in the Netherlands. I've got a feeling I might have written it down here somewhere. He might be. I think he's 25 as well. Another 25-year-old, Ali Lo Celso Ndombele, all 25. I think Kessie's 25 as well. It seems to be a weird thing about 25-year-olds in Tottenham at the moment. But yeah, Amrabat, maybe he's one of those who, on a loan move, is a cheap kind of extra body to have in there. AC Milan apparently looking at him as well. So it's not like he's rubbish. I think he's just had a tough year. Hasn't been a great one for him. But certainly when his name's come up, people haven't been too ecstatic at the prospect. But we'll see. Obviously, the other one as well is Jorginho Wijnaldum. There's talk about him potentially coming the other way in a PSG deal for Ndombele. Wijnaldum obviously hasn't really reached the heights I think they thought he would at PSG. Obviously, he was a very good player for Liverpool. Almost joined Spurs, didn't he? Was it back in 2016? I think he met with Poch, was really impressed with him, but didn't. Ended up going to Liverpool instead. While I think he'd be a good addition to that midfield, an experienced player in there, my gut tells me it's not really a Tottenham profile kind of transfer in terms of, I think he's 31. He'd be one of the higher earners, or in not the highest earners, but he'd be up there in terms of wages as a 31-year-old. Of course, yes, Hugo Lloris signed that new deal. He's 35, but goalkeeper's a little bit different. Tottenham, when they're doing transfers rather than renewing contracts, a little bit different. Matt Doherty was 28, was he, when they signed him? And even that was like a bit of an older signing for Tottenham. They just don't normally go for that profile of player, but can't rule it out completely. And, you know, it's whether Pochettino is willing to let him go or not. But I'd say I probably like him more than the Amrabat idea. Certainly he's a player that knows the Premier League, and I think he'd offer you that real experience in the centre of the pitch. So no, I wouldn't say that's a bad idea at all. Yeah, let's see what the rest of the window brings on that one, but I just kind of don't know whether it's a Tottenham signing. And then you've got the striker position, which is, you know, Prachy has his players that he loves. You know, as I've already said, Traore's one. What's his name? McKennie is one as well. Kessie he really likes. And we know that for the striker role, his ideal signing would be Dusan Vlahovic. Of course it would. I think they probably missed the boat last summer. I think Spurs could have pushed that a bit harder and got him. They didn't. And now you have a player who's absolutely tearing Serie A to pieces again. I think his stats are something like 20 goals in 24 appearances this season. It's just phenomenal. Still only 21. You know, and the problem is most of Europe wants him now. You know, Arsenal obviously trying to push hard to sign him, but it seems to be some question about whether he'd go there or not. I think Man City had been looking at him as well. I think there'd be lots and lots of top clubs looking at him. He would fit the Premier League to a T. Physically, you can see he'd be perfect for it. And I'm gutted that Tottenham didn't really push for that last summer properly, because had they, and I think the wages, even for a guy who it'll be down to the last year of contract, I think in the summer, I'd still say they'll get a big fee because of how good he is. There's a lot of talk that his wages are going to be very big because of the demand in him. So I just wonder whether waiting that extra time in classic Tottenham style, whether they've ended up getting a person who's probably not going to depreciate in value too much. You know, you may be talking maybe another 10 or 20 million off because of the extra year gone off his contract. But when you look at the wages and everything, I don't know. You know, I don't get the impression that he'd be desperate to leave this month. There doesn't seem to be any kind of suggestion that he would. I think he wants to finish this season with Fiorentina. I think Fiorentina, looking at where they are in the league table, you know, they're probably not going to challenge at the top. I think they're far too far off that now. Whether they still believe that they could sneak into a Champions League spot, I'd say, I think I looked at it yesterday, I think they're still a fair way off that as well. Unless they settle this season and think, right, well, we're not going to get much higher, but maybe we can still get more money for him if we sell him now. You know, there's talk that they accepted a bid from Arsenal. I don't know whether that's true or not. But yeah, like I say, that would be the ideal, and I think in Paratici's mind, is the France under-21 international Mohamed Ali Cho. Mohamed Ali Cho. He's only just turned 18 this month. He plays up front for Angers. He's very young, very raw, skillful lad, left-footed, plays mainly up front, but also can play on either flank if required. He scored 2 goals this season, but he's become, you know, he was 17. Don't forget, he was 17 for much of the season. He'd scored a couple of goals as a 17-year-old. Definitely one for the future. There's talk that his value isn't too much. It's around 17 million. He's, funny enough, he spent a fair bit of his childhood in England, or later childhood. He was in Everton's academy, I think, for 5 years. He was an England under-16 and under-17 international. But I think last year, he switched to become a France under-21 international. But yeah, a lot of talk about him being a kind of one of the next big things to come out of Ligue 1. And, you know, I completely agree with people that why are we in the 6th from last day of the window and Spurs still haven't signed someone? You know, that is mind-blowing. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't see how the fee that, let's say, for Traore, I don't see how the fee for Traore now is going to be too different. God, that was a struggle. Too different from the one they probably would have paid earlier in the window. I can't see it. I'd be surprised if it was. It may be that because, you know, they're trying to get it made into a loan deal rather than an initial permanent transfer. I don't know. But I don't understand the logic behind the waiting. You know, could he have made a difference in... I was trying to think, it might have been cup-tied. I was about to say, could he have made a difference in the Chelsea games? But he might have been cup-tied. That might have been a really stupid comment. So I'm glad I stopped myself before I said it. I suppose you could maybe look at saying the Premier League. Well, yeah, I suppose he could play against Chelsea in the Premier League. There you go. And I think he probably would have made a difference compared to the wingers, certainly yesterday. But yeah, I don't get the way Tottenham move sometimes. I don't.